welcome everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. It's the first in a series of kind of a new series of webinars titled A Conversation With. And what we're trying to do is have some conversations with some Clubmate clubs, the clubs that have had a really good time with Clubmate, who use it a lot and have found it really helps their club. We're going to chat tonight. We're going to chat with Mervyn Beal, who's the secretary at Bideford District Angling Club. Not only are we going to talk about coming on board with Clubmate and how they've experienced it and how they use it, but we're going to talk about the club and what they're doing and find out some really interesting stuff about what's going on at Bideford. I know they've been very successful and they've got a lot of really interesting stuff going on, not only with members, but with juniors and, all kinds of really positive stories. We want to hear about all those things, and we also want to hear about, obviously, how Clubmate's managed to help that and how it's made life easier to help facilitate some of these things. So first of all, we'll introduce Mervyn. Hiya, Merv. Welcome to A Conversation With Bideford District Angling Club. If you want to just say hello to everyone first.
Yeah, thank you, Rob, for the invite, and good evening, everyone. And I hope we have an enjoyable evening.
Hopefully, they're all enjoyable when you're around, Merv. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about you and the club. Tell us a little bit about Bideford District Angling Club. We'll talk about kind of who you are, where you are, what you sell, how many members, that kind of thing. And also tell us a little bit about yourself. And I know there are some other kind of committee members or members of the club on the call as well. So if you want to mention a few of those, please go ahead. So just give us a bit about the club, Merv.
Yeah, well, my name is Mervyn Beal. I'm the club secretary of Bideford District Angling Club, which is located in Bideford, North Devon, near the North Devon coast. We're not the largest of clubs, but at the present moment, we've got 542 members, 143 juniors. We have our own club lakes. We got two lakes. One's called George's, one's called Karen's. And just recently, we've managed to take on a couple of other small lakes, which is going to help our membership. Clubmate, I can describe it in 2 words, really. To me, as the club secretary, it is complete heaven, because now I've got everything on one particular screen, where before there was spreadsheets, all these emails coming in and God knows what. So now we consolidated everything onto Clubmate. It's quite easy to find anything. Before, we had a clubhouse, but unfortunately through expiring costs, etc., that had to close. And it wasn't so bad then, because everyone could pay their membership via the clubhouse. After that closed, our membership was being paid via tackle shops, which we like to encourage, because no one wants to see tackle shops close, obviously. They were paying by bank transfer, posting the membership through the membership secretaries, post box, paying by check, and all these things. And to me, that was starting to get a bit of a nuisance, because it meant our treasurer plus myself couldn't really find out what was happening with membership. Plus our membership secretary had to keep contacting the treasurer to find out if this person had paid via bank transfer and all this nonsense. So one evening, myself and Phil got together and had a little chat about things, and we thought there must be an easier way to consolidate our membership onto one database. So we started playing around and looking, and we happened to come across Clubmate. This was in the early days before Rob joined Clubmate. So Phil contacted Owen, and he arranged to have on-site tuition. So that's how Clubmate was born in our club. It went to the secretary. It went to the chairman, who wasn't too keen on it to start with, but he's slowly coming around to our way of thinking. And as club secretary, sometimes I can be a bit of a pain in the backside towards him, but there you are. But that's how it is. So what we've done is we consolidated everything that we knew or all our membership on the Clubmate, and now it's all on one screen. So that's the story of how we got involved into Clubmate. Has anybody got any questions on that?
Probably a similar conversation with a lot of the clubs. Really, it's it more and more. Obviously, COVID was a big turning point. You know, where people had to look for some other way. I know Phil's got his hand up. So, Phil, if you want to ask a question, Phil Holt, that is. You have to turn your microphone back on, Phil.
Rob, it's Graham.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we've got Phil now. Go ahead.
Okay, right. When we joined Clubmate and you were offering your discounts and stuff like that, I did get in contact with Bideford Club and several other clubs, but maybe it wasn't you, Mervyn. Maybe it was whoever else you were talking about, your chairman or whatever. And I contacted them all offering the discounts, because obviously we would get a discount at Exeter and you would. And no one replied to me. And I went through all the clubs that's in the Southwest. And it's unbelievable now that you're now talking to me here. And Paul Carter, who was the bailiff for the Environment Agency, I used to go out with him and I used to tell him. And it's a little bit disappointing from our angle, but I mean, it's good that you're there now.
It's always been a tough one, this kind of referral thing. Now, obviously, everyone benefits. You know, we give 10% off both clubs. You know, if one of our clubs refers another club and they then join, they both get a discount next year. So both clubs get 10% off the next year. It's a no-brainer, really. The clubs that, if you're going to do a referral anyway, it's a case that if you make that referral, it's because you know it works well. So you already know you're not really taking a plunge on anything. So you're going to be referring it to clubs that feel the same way. We are obviously probably more active ourselves in doing that now and speaking to more people. I think probably, I mean, how long have you been on board now, Merv?
Over 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, we've massively changed since then, obviously. You know, we've gone from this thing that everyone had to discover. Like, if you mentioned Clubmate, everyone had to go and look who it was and what they meant. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a different animal now. We're geographically spread throughout the UK. Nearly everyone knows someone who's got a Clubmate account or has got one themselves somewhere. We've got 325 clubs or fisheries now. So there's a lot more recognition. It's not just something you've mentioned to some other club. I'm not saying that was the case, and obviously someone probably should have got back to you, but there is a lot more now. When you mention Clubmate, people say, "Oh, that's the software thing." You know, it's not just some random name. We actually, is everyone aware that there's a non-alcoholic beer called Clubmate? Because we get quite a lot of emails and support tickets asking if they can buy any stock. And I'm perfectly happy to put us on the shelf in a pub, but I'm not sure we'll get very far. But it is a really interesting one that we get. All of a sudden, there must have been an advert somewhere, because last week I think we had about 5 people ask if they could buy some Clubmate beer. But yeah, no, interesting that you say that, Phil. But obviously, time gone now. We can't really do much about it. But really,
I think I was involved pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
With Owen.
Yeah, and obviously back then it was nearly just Owen.
Yeah. And the reason why I got involved was because of Angling Trust meetings, and there was a guy.
Kevin.
Not. What was his surname?
It's Kevin. I can't remember now.
Shen.
It's similar. I met the guy obviously before I worked at Clubmate. I saw him because they used to go to the regional group forums, the in-person Angling Trust regional forums, and do a bit of a presentation on Clubmate.
Oh no, it was John Shen.
John Chain. He's the media chap at the Angling Trust.
But he started his own little. He bought a water or leased a water.
Yeah, he's got a lake or something, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he did something. I think it was pike fishing and stuff like that. But he because he was. I can remember meeting him at a hotel at an Angling Trust sort of conference thing, and he was going about the QR codes and stuff like that. So, I mean, I produced our own QR codes for our club and printed them and put them out everywhere. But that was a good idea.
Can I say something, Phil?
David.
Sorry.
It's your show, Merv. Go ahead.
Phil, I haven't received any notification from Exeter District Angling Club that they wanted to join, to have discount with our club. If I did, I would have been the first person to respond to you. I have spoken to you in the past on the phone, but that was possibly to do with the Angling Trust VBS system.
I mean, to be fair, like time gone by 3 years ago now. Tie water under the bridge.
Yes, sorry, Mervyn. This was quite a few years ago. When
it may have been before
emails.
Yeah. You're a bit young for it, Merv. It might have been before your time.
Yeah, 78 years old is a bit young, Phil.
Yeah, you're probably still in your long socks back then.
There was a lot of people against going online at the time, but obviously being proved wrong now.
I'll move it forward so we don't keep going on. We've got the hour soon goes quickly. Graham, did you say something before Phil, or were we going to ask a question?
No, I was just saying, I don't know what's happened, but the last meeting and this meeting, I've been bombed for some reason. I've sort of just come in on the iPad. I was using a Mac previously, so I don't know what's happened. It doesn't seem to be my end.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know particularly because I've seen there's a couple of people that kind of get chucked out of the call and then join on a different device or something. I'll have to have a look into it. I'm not sure there's much I can do at the moment. But
no.
Occasionally, the same people, the same people seem to get kind of pinged out of the meeting, and I think, well, we can't be that bad, surely, because it looks like they've just left. We're only I'm only 2 minutes in, not that bad. Anyway, we'll go over to Phil Vanston.
Evening, everyone. I was just going to add to Merv there, obviously, as treasurer of the club, he was quite right. The actual tying all the membership together with the monies and things was extremely difficult. Now it's very simple with the systems that we're using. We're obviously using Clubmate Pay now, and we've got the reports there. We can tie everything up quite easily and distribute the funds into the appropriate accounts. Perfect.
It's nice to hear. And I mean, I don't want to make this all about, let's just say, how brilliant Clubmate is, because we are really interested in hearing about the type of clubs that use Clubmate. Because I'd like to think, I certainly, I run what I consider to be a large and pretty successful club, and I fully endorse online tools. Bideford do, and I like to think that good clubs will recognise the value of good tools. So I don't want to make it all about, let's just kind of say how great it is. We are interested in hearing from the clubs and the good things they're doing. Obviously, we're running we're running the junior participation survey at the moment, and I know Bideford are incredibly active from a junior perspective. As you heard from Merv a little while ago, with 500 odd members and over 100 juniors, the ratio there is good. It's something we'll touch on a little bit. Like I say, there's a lot to kind of talk about in an hour, and obviously some of it is about Clubmate. When you say, obviously, I know Merv, during your kind of introduction there, you said, Bideford's not a particularly big club, but by the numbers, to be honest, no, I'll kind of cover this for the people in the room so you kind of know kind of where it is in the rank, where you sit in the rankings as such. But obviously, we've got hundreds of fisheries, and we work with the Angling Trust, who've got thousands of member clubs. The average size of an angling club is actually just over 300 members. So there are obviously different ways of measuring average, but the most common size of club is about 330 members. So by that definition, you're quite large. But there is this massive disparity, and you actually sit in quite a strange category, Merv, to be honest, because there tend to be an awful lot of clubs from up to 350, up to 300, and then there's usually quite a big jump to 1,000 plus. And I always categorize them in my head as kind of clubs and associations. And the associations I call the big city clubs, the really big clubs, the massive big city affairs. Whereas everyone goes from 300 or 400, and if you're not 300 or 400, you're 1,000 because you're one of those big clubs with a massive geographical audience. And clubs don't tend to hang around very much in your size category. They tend to go very quickly from 300 or 400 to the 1,000 mark. Now, obviously, you have successfully been growing. I hope that we've been a part of that. But where has that come from? Let's just say, I'm not saying when the day you joined Clubmate, but over the last 5 to 10 years, maybe, has the membership risen steadily, or have there been issues with membership?
No, I wouldn't say we've had any issues. The only issues we have a membership. If somebody wants to join and then got an email address, like I think somebody else mentioned just now. But we
And just to
will,
clarify, do you only sell on Clubmate now? Is it all your membership through Clubmate?
yeah, everything at the moment. What we done, Rob, or everyone, what we done, Rob, when we joined Clubmate in the first year, Owen and Phil consolidated everything into the Clubmate database. And after that, I think we joined in the middle of a year. And we found that everybody that was joining, probably 70% was joining on Clubmate. But what we done with the following year, just to be fair to our members, we kept the old system running for 12 months. So people could go to the tackle shops, or they could get in touch with the membership secretary and pay the same way as they done. But what we found was, I think around about 80% was joining by Clubmate. And obviously this year, everyone have joined through Clubmate. We've had one or two little hiccups, but nothing serious. And to be perfectly honest, as a club secretary, I find it very easy because I can switch on my laptop or put on my phone, and I can have access to whatever I want on Clubmate.
The interesting, but I'm always in. Again, I come from my own club, and as I've said many times, the reason I joined Clubmate is because I was already running a completely cashless digital club, and the point of me joining Clubmate was to help other people do that, help people like you, and help other clubs around the country, because I fully believe that a fully digital membership was the best way of working. Now, a lot of my focus is on making life easier for volunteers, because everyone on this call is at a club. Every single person on this call runs a club, helps at a club, works at a club. You know how much effort goes into that. You know how much of your own time and your own fishing you've sacrificed, and your own life. I'm sure we're all going to get divorced again one day, but tons of hours over renewal period. Months. I speak to membership secretaries all the time, and people that run fisheries that sacrifice 2 months in spring. Where people have got to come around the house, or they got to go around the shops, and all these kind of things. Now, I'm all for cutting the cord and saying it's all entirely digital and online, however that is, whether it's Clubmate or not. But it's very normal, as you've done, to transition, with a year or two of doing both, which is very understandable. But when you get to that 80-90% and you're thinking, well, it's costing me twice as much time to still manage some kind of offline process, we haven't really saved as much time as we could. It obviously makes sense. And the interesting part, again, putting you in kind of a larger than average category of membership, is you've said there are 1 or 2 hiccups with people that don't have an email address. There is always this monstrous fear of this great big dark shadow of people that can't use the internet. And I will always feed back to people, not only because it's my job, but because I've done it. I've been there and done that with a club. It's not as many as you think. If we think about the wider world, we look at a lot of anglers, and we look at kind of senior citizen anglers and the older audience of angling, but we forget that everyone nearly has to pay something online these days, especially the rod license. Obviously, the best example here is that you have to buy your rod license online now in England. You've got to buy a rod license. You have to buy it online. It's a digital rod license. It's emailed to you, but the wider world, your telephone, your council tax, your electricity, it's very common that you have to do something online these days. And if you own any kind of smartphone, you've got an email address. If you buy an iPhone, you've got an iCloud address. If you buy an Android phone, you've got a Gmail that they just give you when you get the phone. So I don't have an email address is reasonably uncommon, down to Mervyn having 500-600 members, and there being a couple of people that can't do it. Andrew?
Yeah, evening everyone, evening Merv. Just do you, out of interest, do you have any fisheries where people have to book? Because we're thinking of introducing that onto one of our systems, and I'm just wondering if you do it and how it works, and do you find it easy or time consuming?
You mean booking onto a club water?
Yeah, well, what it is, the committee are negotiating at the moment to take 2 rods on 2 days a week on a particular stretch of river, and it will, obviously, because there's only 2 rods allowed on it, it will have to be through a booking system. It's something we don't use at the moment. I'm just wondering if you use it and how you find it.
What we've done, Andrew, I said just a few minutes ago, we've just taken on a lease of 2 small lakes,
Yeah.
which it's got to be booked via Clubmate for our members. It's only for our members. So what we've done is I've set up a booking system on the activities, and we've got, I think, the 11 swims on one lake, and the smaller pond is more of a wild type of fishing, and we're only going to allow 2 on there. So what I've done is it don't start actually until the 1st of August, but Rob could probably bring it up on screen, I'm not sure, but I've set up an activity so that our members can book on. It's free, there's no payment. So I've done it that way. Also, we've just introduced just recently, we used to sell day tickets, but we stopped doing that when COVID came in. But we now reintroduced guest tickets, £10 a day. So I've set that up on Clubmate and on the activities calendar. So our members, there's our calendar as it is. You can see when Shoreston comes in on the 1st of August, Bottom Lake, etc., etc. And at the moment, I think we've got 4 or 5 already booked on. So it is working very well. I need to talk to Rob because I'm not quite sure what I need to do is the small lake, which only allows 2 anglers, is carp fishing mainly. We're allowing day tickets on it and 24-hour fishing. And I haven't worked out a way how I can cope with that at the moment. So I may need to speak to Rob about it.
Right.
But
so just a quick little cover off on it, on that one, Merv, just to tick your box and hopefully answer a little bit for Andrew as well. So if you've got day tickets on it and a 24-hour night ticket, obviously you still don't want to exceed the cap of 2. So what you don't do is you can set the activity limit to 2 on each. So let's just say you've got 2 activities per day on the same venue. So you've got, let's just say this is activity A and this is activity B, and they're both on the same lake, but you can't exceed more than 2 people, but you still want to be able to have 2 on each if that's who gets there first. So instead of setting the activity, or you set the activity limit at 2 of each, but you need to create a location for it and set a location limit of 2, so that if the 2 first ones are on the first activity, it cannot be exceeded by location. To be fair, we've never really done much with locations in the system. It's a bit of a tag on, really. When it comes to using locations in the system, its only true benefit previously, and I can't actually see one here, was when you book something, it would tell you the location. So you can create a location called Lake 1, and when you went to the booking diary, it would say day ticket Lake 1, and that was really the only benefit of location. Firstly, you can set an overall location cap. So if you had 2, 3, 4 activities on the same lake, which is common with a lot of the big day ticket fisheries, especially when we've got clients like Bristol Water, they've got a lot of, pike events on Chew and Blagdon, venues like that. They will have 4 or 5 different options on the same lake, but they cannot exceed a certain amount of space, or 20 boats, 30 boats, whatever it might well be. So you set a location limit so that physically at the same time the 30 swims cannot be exceeded, even if each activity had 30 spaces. And once they all meet 30, it won't exceed. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail offline, because of course these are kind of support type questions, so we can kind of go into that a little bit more detail offline. Andrew, we can definitely talk to you, Andrew, about a 2, but is it member booking? I'm assuming you're going to do, Andrew. It's going to be 2 beats available to your members.
Yeah, just for only member. We don't do day tickets.
So is it free? Is it going to be free or paid?
It's going to be free, but there is the estate we're renting the water off will only allow 2 rods on it. Yeah, perfectly capable. I mean, one of the, to be fair, this is something I'll cover again. I think Merv's a great example of this. Bideford, another good example. They are growing into more and more bookings through the system. Now, we are very much thought of as a membership platform. The first and foremost thing people think of us about is selling memberships and managing members. And it's very common for clubs to then say, oh, wait a minute, we've still been doing day tickets, in person. And I think it'd be easier if we could do it like, this, do it digitally and everyone's paid us before they get there. And Bideford are growing into that with more and more different types of bookable activity. But it's very capable. Brilliant. Thanks, Merv.
What I would like to say is our club is quite simple. It's not like Phil's at Exeter. Our our membership runs from January to December each year. We haven't got any closed seasons or anything like that. So our members join January and they renew again at the end of December, beginning of January of the following year. So our fees is quite simple, really. We got junior under 12s, junior 12 to 18s, adult concession, and then we got C in game. So our membership system set up for paying is a lot simpler than some of the bigger clubs like the Exeter club that Phil was with.
You can people can get carried away, and I've told this tale many times, but there are clubs out there that have got up to 80 different types of membership. The club I'm aware of with the most different types of membership plan has 80 different membership plans. Now, that's their decision. I thoroughly believe as a club chairman myself that just confuses members, and I think that it's really difficult to come up with 80 different ways of selling membership. I think it's quite micromanaged, but the Clubmate system can manage various types of membership. We always encourage simple, with the new clubs that are coming on board, and there are a few of our newer clubs on the call tonight. We will always have that conversation when you come on board with us, because not only, we're not a software company. As many of you know, we all run clubs and we all work at clubs. So we like to think we've got some insight as well as working with you guys. So we see what works well and what doesn't. We will try and reduce the amount of plans you have. So if you come on board with us and you tell us you've got X amount of memberships, we do 20 different membership plans. We will always have a chat about, do you think we could reduce this a little bit? Phil, go ahead.
Thanks. I've just got sort of one word of advice is try and keep it simple and don't make too many rules, because that's the problem we've had. We make rules, but there's no one going to enforce it.
I've fought this battle so hard in various arenas, not only with Clubmate, but at the Angling Trust enforcement workshops and with the Environment Agency. And as far as club rules go, and as far as getting your anglers to do what you want, you've got to make it frictionless. It's a bit like Andrew was discussing earlier with the kind of registration and making the journey frictionless. If you want people to follow your club rules, they shouldn't be any longer than a page. And now I've seen some ridiculously overburdensome sets of rules, because of course we upload them for clubs onto the Clubmate platform, and I've seen sets of rules that are in excess of 8-10 pages. I can promise you now no one reads them. Probably people haven't read 58 out of your 70 rules. There's a difference between rules and guidance, and you shouldn't or can't come up with 8-10 pages of rules. If they're just a bullet point, unless your text is in about size 90, you couldn't possibly get anything that is a common sense rules to fill 10 pages. Now, I always say to people, here's an A4 bit of paper, put 20 bullet points on it maximum and make your rules fit it, because that's what people will read. That's about as much as people will accommodate. Otherwise, you're into that world of, and it's a bit of a kind of software term, but death by PowerPoint. If you try and publish to people 10 pages of rules, they won't even follow rule 1. So the 20, maximum 20, and don't go to 20 if you don't have to, but the 20 most important things at your club should be rules, and you can then have limitless guidance. Now, I see very reactionary changes, and a lot of you, some people might come in here to kind of agree or disagree around, and I will say this one, and it can be controversial, but pike fishing. The best example I can ever think of is that, instantly people ban pike fishing in summer. Now, I'm not really kind of giving an opinion of it either way, but they've only done it in a lot of cases because someone else did, or because of a historical season that never existed, or, various ones. And another good example, it's probably not quite as inflammatory as pike fishing, but lead core. Now, I come from a kind of carp angling background, but I know a lot of clubs that have banned lead core because someone else did. And when I actually ask the clubs, these tend to be the kind of more traditional style angling clubs, they couldn't even describe to me what lead core was. But they know that everyone else has banned it, so they banned it. Or more recently, the magic twig. Now, I banned the magic twig, but I've used it and I have my own opinions on it. But most people didn't even know what the magic twig did or could do or what it looked like when they banned it. That for me is not a rule, that's some guidance. So have your one-pager set of rules, which they can access at all times through their app or whatever else. And then you can have links to guidance on pike fishing or guidance on barbel fishing, barbel handling code and all the rest of it. But if your rules exceed more than, I know I'm simplifying, but a single page, you're probably not going to get them enforced. What's that like at your club, Merv, with rules? Do you have quite? I've not looked into your rule list. Is there like an excessive rule list, or do you have a lot of success with it?
Yeah, we have just banned alcohol, as you already know, on our lakes, which is happening on a lot of lakes. Some of our, I think, to be quite honest, our rules is plain and simple, but I think some of them could be moderated a bit and cut down on so many paragraphs for this and that, which probably needs looking at. But
you got to remember that it's not, it's not a finished article either. You don't need to set your rules and never change them. Clubs get in the habit of, you've got the rules, and you've got these really old rules, and then you just keep adding to them. There's nothing wrong with taking things away from them. And not just the specific rules themselves, but the way that they're written. I had a club recently who wrote to me and asked me to have a look at their constitution and their rules and say, did I have any advice and could I help them rewrite it? Now, a lot of them in the past, and nearly all of you could probably send me this, you've got this really, really, really complicated constitution that was written so it sounded like it was posh. It was written to sound like it was official. The club shall, and upon such date as whatever, we shall have a quorum of. Now that was done to sound like for volunteer angling clubs and brewery clubs to sound like they were official. The modern trend with that is to have a much more simple, straight talking document, and it says the club's name is this, the membership is this. Phil, Vanston, go ahead.
Yeah, on our rules list, we've got we've obviously got our constitution right at the beginning, but then we've got, with the various different sections, i.e. game or sea or course or now with the new lakes we're taking on, we've got individual bylaws for those.
Yeah.
So it's where all the sort of specific like Tarka rules come into play, and then there's probably about 18 or 20 at most on each.
At least yours are kind of specified, because I've just brought them up and I thought, having said this, I'm going to look at the Bible at Bideford. I'm going to open this. I'm going to look really bad now because there's going to be a massive Bible. But yours, obviously, it's a very different when you are a course, game, sea fishing club. You've got to have very specific rules to suit each. Now, you have, what I'm saying is obviously a very generalization, but there are niches there within that. So if you do have, especially, like sea and game couldn't be much further away from each other in rules and course as well. But yours are very clearly defined as each, and each one is reasonably short. And if you eliminate the fact that in your rules, it says rules, but technically the constitution's above it, so that doesn't really count as rules. But it is a very simple set of a few bullet points for the rules. And coming back to the rules, I've just commented on a post tonight, actually. Some of you might see it because it's one of the largest clubs in the country. I won't say which one it is, but someone, an angler, and anglers can be challenging at times for those of us who put a lot of time and effort into clubs, is causing quite a fuss because the club bailiff has asked him for his license, and it's all sparking off on the social media because the club bailiff asked him for his license. Now, I thoroughly believe that any angler worth his salt would be quite happy to show it to a club bailiff, because they should be happy to show the license that they're contributing to the sport. And there's a lot of lack of knowledge, and I'm hoping that Clubmate as well, and I'll come back to Merv for his opinion on this, I'm hoping Clubmate is helping clubs gain good ideas off each other and spreading good knowledge. And obviously we've got a community group where people can chat. There's obviously quite a lot of talk on that chat, uninformed as it is, that a club bailiff has no right to ask for a license. Now, the true letter of the law on that is that you don't have to show him, but he has every right to ask. If it's in your rules that you have to have a license, then if you refuse to show that license, you have no right to fish and you're committing a criminal offence. But there's so much lack of knowledge that hopefully digital platforms where you can communicate to each other help spread awareness. You can, with Merv, you'll probably say that you can email everyone in the system at the same time the same thing. So it's not word of mouth, it's not different bits of paper, it's not whether they walk past a sign anymore. You can always have access to the same thing. Kind of drawing it back round to back to the club a little bit. We're getting into kind of a bit of a general chit chat about clubs, but I'm very interested in the junior part, Merv, because of course you said you've got a simple kind of membership, and there are a few junior categories. Do they all pay, or are any of them free?
At the moment, our match secretary is running 5 sessions a year. That's I think we've done 3 altogether, and they've been well attended. We limit it at the moment to 25 per session, and the last 3 have been nearly full. And
But is their membership free, Merv?
their
Kids?
membership are free. All our membership under 12s are free. Yes, they're free.
And then above 12, at 13, they start paying.
That's right. When they reach 13 to 18, it's £5. Then when 18 upwards, obviously is an adult membership. What we have found is we don't run the juniors really well, obviously we run the juniors, and all of them that participate in the junior events are members because it's free, so they've joined. And what we find is their adults bring them along to the afternoon session, which is from 1 o'clock till 5. And we find that they really enjoy, and we finish up that the fathers or the mums join the club as well.
It's one of the key benefits people miss is that there's, and I've done a lot of coaching, there's nearly no parent ever that didn't enjoy it. And whether they've never seen a fishing rod in their life, never caught a fish. And it's usually, you know, the one you don't expect is usually the mums. And at some point during a session, you'll try and get the mum involved. And without fail, I can't even remember the last one that didn't have fun, you know, having a go fishing. So you do usually end up with some members as well.
And also another benefit which has happened just recently, 5 of our committee members have just done the level 2 coaching. 3 have completed their course, and Phil is online now, and 1 of have just got their assessments to finish, which has been a big help. And I think we could possibly, the way it's going, our membership, I don't know if this is the same of every club that's online tonight, but our junior membership, even our adult membership, over the last couple of months has spiraled, especially the juniors under 12s.
I think I've said this on a previous webinar, I think, and to a few people in the last few weeks at meetings and stuff. I think this is a good fishing year. You know, I've seen this all round at clubs and fisheries, and there's a lot of angling appetite, as we call it. You know, there is a lot of angling appetite out there at the moment, and our job as clubs and fishery owners and all the rest of it is to provide angling opportunity. And it's a simple maths equation. If you've got more angling appetite than angling opportunity, we're doing well, but we need to keep increasing the opportunity for them to go fishing. But I think generally it's a busy fishing year this year. It feels like everyone's reporting the same kind of growth, or certainly audience. Phil Holt?
Yeah, thanks. We reduced our membership fee for juniors to £5, and it's exploded over the last 2 years. But the problem we have now is a lot of juniors are going out with the wrong equipment. I know they can't afford it. Bailiffs need to be sort of sympathetic towards them. But the other problem we've had is younger people running around, shouting, making noise, stuff like that.
General antisocial behaviour, because it's such a cheap into the activity. You've got to know gateway.
We're not, you know, we try and help them and educate them, but there is quite a few who don't take that on board, and it's a little bit of a problem. So we're actually thinking of putting our membership up for juniors now.
So we're all kind of really, I think we're in the years at the moment of this problem. You know, and it's a good problem to have. We've all got lots of junior appetite to fish, and just like you said, with the bailiffs having to do the right thing, the one thing I think is that there is more awareness in the last year or two that they're not just little tykes on bikes. I could use worse words there, but you know, all the kids that bike around on their mountain bikes, and we've all done it. I think I saw some yesterday. You get down the river, you see some mountain bikes dumped on the floor, and you think, right, where are the kids? You know, somewhere behind a bridge or whatever, there's going to be some lads fishing with just a rod from Aldi or, you know, whatever else. And it's a really simple observation for a start. They want to fish. You know, that's the positive part, is they want to go fishing. And in most cases, it's just that they don't know how to very well. And it's a difficult conversation because there is a technical difference between an angling coach and a fishery bailiff. Now, an angling coach has obviously had some kind of advice and guidance and wants to teach people, probably naturally fits more towards being a teacher. A bailiff just takes tickets, and in some cases is very not suitable to kind of teaching people and coaching people and whatever else. But of course, they are the front line of seeing these people. Now, funny enough about the pricing, there's a very big question out there at the moment about whether or not juniors should be free or not, or cheap or not. Again, obviously, a lot of you have filled in our participation survey, and if you haven't, we're going to keep sending it till everyone has. So just fill it in. I can tell you right now the current state of those results, and the submissions is well into 3 figures. So there's a lot of people. It's true data, so to speak. The majority of clubs, and I'm talking going on for 70%, 60 to 70% voted to say that their club gives junior fishing under 16 for free, entirely free. And to be honest, I kind of categorise a fiver as free to an extent. But so the majority of clubs, nearly 3/4 of clubs, are giving free membership to juniors. But the next question is, do you think they should pay? And the answer was in the majority, yes. So the vast majority of clubs are giving away free fishing to kids, but the vast majority don't think they should. And it's an interesting conversation, and it is a conversation that Phil's kind of very rightly reflected there about commitment and values. Because if you're committing a certain amount of money, you probably hold more value in what you've paid for, as opposed to it being so cheap and easy to access. Who's Mark Richardson? Go first, please.
Hi, everybody. My name's Mark Richardson. I'm a secretary down at Dorking in Surrey. Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Mark.
Hi. Rob, a quick question about the juniors, and you mentioned about one of the other people, Phil, I said about the kids not having the tackle.
Yeah.
Now, I'm an ex-match angler, and I'm sure probably everybody else in the group on the line would say, I've probably got a bit too much kit in my shed. And how do we get rid of this? How do we move this kit on? So the question is there any way Clubmate could be a catalyst or a central position to facilitate getting the kit out of my shed into the hands of the right kids? So
yes, well, not currently, no, but it is something I've spoken about very recently because I'm doing a lot of work with junior participation at the moment. As I've again mentioned on the previous webinar, for my own club, I'm running a very specific Clubmate site that is a purely coaching site. It is full of junior coaching candidates, 200 to nearly 300 kids now, and the Clubmate site is purely for our kids, as opposed to the wider membership of the club, and the staff are all coaches. And the one thing that's been raised, and I have discussed, and I am thinking through with the development team, is kind of a tackle marketplace. Now I'm doing this on a kind of club basis in that I kind of use my School of Fish, as it's called, as a testing ground for what we're going to do with the wider Clubmate model. I do have the luck. And for those of you that have met Ulvis, who's joined as the client engagement manager at Clubmate, he's also my head of coaching. We are using that site to kind of test out a few of these things, and we've taken a load of tackle donations from local members. We've advertised on our socials, and I strongly encourage clubs to do this, but a lot of this still comes down to the fact that we're all volunteers. Outside of my Clubmate job, I have the same challenges as all of you do. Once Clubmate day ends, I've got a club to run. I have to do all my hours of club work as well. Technically speaking, I've said that, we do try our best. We will drive around 2 counties and pick up anything you want to give. And if it's, if some of it's complete tosh, we'll take it to the tip. No worries, Phil. We're recording anyway, so I'll send you the recording. But thanks for coming tonight. So I've said to kind of our team, and we will, where possible, go collect anything. So even if it's complete trash, and we will take, we'll save the good stuff. And if you were going to take it to the skip anyway, but you think it might be easier for your club to come and get it, we'll do that as well so we get the good stuff. And then I am selling it on a kind of tackle marketplace basis. So I'm putting it into my online shop on the School of Fish so that kids can buy cheap tackle. And when we do coaching events, occasionally, we don't do it every time due to the logistics, but we'll line up all the used tackle with some pricing on, little paper tags, and we'll sell them at the coaching events. And parents are very interested. Little Timmy's had a great time on his coaching session, and then he's saying to Mummy, I want a seat box and I want a pole. And if we've got some good value secondhand, and we sell it at ridiculously low value. I mean, there are rods that I know full well, and again, because I literally ran a tackle shop that did secondhand tackle for 3-4 years, I've sold rods that are worth 80 quid probably on the second-hand market for 5 quid. But as long as we're getting something for the kids and someone some value out of it, a really good example of this, and they're not on the call tonight, but you might have seen the story that we put out this week, is Reading and District Angling Association. Now, they are very fortunately a very big club. They've got their own fixed locations. They've got a cafe. They've got an awful lot they're a very successful club. But if you go in their cafe, the wall is lined with donated tackle with pricing on. And whenever you visit their fishery, you can go in and buy it, and it all gets reinvested in the junior section. So it's not quite, it's a little bit different. It's not get the used tackle, give it to the kids. They get all the used tackle from members and then sell it and buy stuff for the kids. And there is a combination of the two, because as we all know, there's some really good used tackle and some really bad used tackle. So it is a blend of the two, because it doesn't really matter whether you donate the tackle to the kids or whether you sell the tackle and buy stuff for the kids. Phil is correct. There is a very current challenge, and I don't know if everyone agrees. It's hard to access kit that parents can afford. In some ways, very easy. You know, we can go out and buy a whip for a tenner, but no one's whip fishing. You know, and this is the challenge with participation. And it's one thing, as much a supporter as I am and partner as I am, I challenge the Angling Trust on. You know, we can't just endlessly do whip sessions to get kids into fishing, because no one really whip fishes. You know, there aren't many anglers out there. There is not this whole audience of whip anglers. So eventually we've got to get them to rods and reels and nets and unhooking mats and seat boxes and all the rest of it. But to be continued, Mark. I don't want to go on too long about it, but yes, I'm looking into that kind of tackle marketplace where we can share it, but I'm testing it on a kind of individual basis at the moment. Who was the next question? Pete Skinner, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Skinner. I'm the chairman of the Bideford Angling Club. I just wanted to make a comment on juniors' behaviour. All our juniors have to fish with an adult. We don't just let the juniors rock up and fish. And we hold the adults responsible for the juniors' behaviour.
What age is that from, Pete? Sorry, is that all the way to adult?
From the way up to the age of 16, although we do reserve the right to take that off. We let at the moment, let the 16-year-olds fish on their own, but we reserve the right to stop that if we find they're playing up.
So I'm going to kind of devil's advocate on this one, really, but do you find that scalably achievable? Are you successful? Obviously, there is a slight niche here in that, like Merv said earlier, you've got mostly fixed lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going back to my own club, I've got 3 counties and 40 miles of river.
Yeah.
Now, it'd be impossible to enforce for a start.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah, we've got 3 lakes at the moment, one of which we haven't started using yet, to be fair. It's well bailiffed. Both of our lakes are well bailiffed, and we haven't had a problem at all, have we? Apart from one slight hiccup a couple of weeks ago, which was dealt with very easily.
I think most of your issues are with adults, aren't they? It's beer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Yeah. It's a great idea, but I think it only fits a certain category. You know, if you've got fixed locations, and we can all bailiff a lake a lot easier than miles and miles of river. And it's also going to be impossible. You would deter on the more open river stretches and things. I think you would deter a lot of participation by doing that, because I will be honest, at 15, 16 years old, if you told me I had to take my mum, I know what I would say.
Don't have to take your mum.
You know what I mean.
We allow other members to take kids.
That's good. That's really interesting that other members can take
the other member will be responsible for the kid's adult.
So it was asked recently online, and again, I do try and give advice where possible online. It was asked when you consider, and this is more from an insurance perspective, like when can a kid fish on their own? And there's a lot of grey area, and not to disparage the authorities, but they love grey areas because that means no one has to make a decision sometimes. The question was asked, when do you think kids can go fishing on their own? Now, having done made a few phone calls and investigations, the age is 13, you know, when you need to have your own rod license. Now, it hasn't expressly been said. Obviously, if you go to the EA website, it will say at 13 you need a rod license, but it's free. But if you really do push them for an answer on that, they will say you need a rod license because at 13, that is the age at which you're expected to not be fishing with someone else with a rod license. From 0 to 12, the expectation is you don't need a rod license because you're with your dad or your granddad or your brother or some friends. But at 13, you get your very own rod license that's free, but that's because you're expected to possibly be fishing on your own. And scalably, you know, looking across all of our clients, I think the expectation is that you've got to make a plan for kids of 13 and above to be fishing on their own, or make a plan for them to be able to fish on their own. I think it's great the way you run it a bit, especially the fact that other people can do it. Interesting to hear, and I'm very glad to hear it's going well. So it's really interesting. The value of some of these calls is obviously we're focusing on Bideford tonight, but to hear all of the different stories is really interesting to all of us, hopefully, especially to me. I'm going to just move it forward again because the time will roll by. But
Well, can I just, before Andrew comes in, can I just say one thing?
yeah,
We've taken on this extra water, and what we've done there, it's not far from my my location where I live. But what we've done is the owner, we've made the owner an honorary member, and she's now on Clubmate, acting as a bailiff, and I've given her tuition on Clubmate, and she is quite successful in using it.
I'm sending them all to you, Merv. If you're doing the training on how to use Clubmate, I'm going to start sending some to you.
Yeah, so that is one thing, and I agree what Pete said. And going back to Phil, where he says that the kids are running riot, but like Peter said, our chairman, we have got 16-year-olds have got to be with an adult guardian or whatever, and if the children are running around like we had the discipline one there a couple of weeks ago, it's not always the child's fault. It's the person, the adult or the guardian that's actually looking after it. But what I wanted to say is on this additional water, we have made the owner an honorary bailiff.
You've got to do that. You know, it's all well and good taking on more waters, and I've done a lot of this in the last few years. It's very easy to lease water. It's actually managing it that's the problem. We can all pay the bill. You know, we can all lease it the first year. You've got to look for whether it is the owner or the local farmer or whatever else, but in some cases have no interest in angling, but they do have an interest in the environment and, you know, in kids, you know, in helping people fish. You've got to look for the local resources. Now, when I'm reaching out, and we're getting very far afield from, you know, our kind of heartland now for water we don't have. So when we do get new water, it's further and further from the heartland. We won't lease it until we found those local resources, because there's no point in having it if you can't bailiff it. And again, Phil's sadly left the call tonight now, but if I had to kind of give him some kind of pushback on that, I would say that regardless of Clubmate, regardless of kids, and regardless of what tools we can give, you can't remove the need for proper good enforcement, which is, again, hopefully something we help with. We've done seminars for bailiffs and things like that. You've still got to enforce, you've still got to discipline, you've still got to enforce, you know, prosecute offences. Regardless of the price, people are going to misbehave, and you've just got to set a standard, and it's got to be a consistent standard. You know, hopefully, again, we've got the tools for bailiffs that are all operating on the same software, get all the same messages, access to the same database. There are so many clubs out there that are still, the bailiff is a very unofficial role. You know, it's, you know, give a guy a piece of paper or a badge maybe and call him a bailiff. Never been trained. No, so he's enforcing a completely different set of rules than the other guy. And I've been through this again. You know, when I came through as a bailiff, every bailiff was just told, right, you're a bailiff now, and you guess what you think bailiffing is, and you say, well, you're naughty or you're not naughty. But one bailiff will walk by a guy and tell him he's okay to fish, and the next one's in a very sticky situation because he knows he's breaking a rule. One for me, the absolute kind of golden rule is you cannot fish without a landing net. And obviously there are a lot of anglers out there that will still turn up just the rod, you know, all the rest of it. Absolute golden rule. We do also have a rule that you must have an unhooking mat if fish touch the bank. So regardless of size, if you're unhooking fish in the water, that's fine. But if you want to put fish on the bank or weigh them or photograph them, you have to have an unhooking mat. But that is one where we do allow the bailiffs a certain level of discretion because it isn't a nationally recognised thing. So we do allow the bailiff discretion on that. But there is absolutely no fishing without a landing net. And that is regardless of who it is or what they're doing. Now, I've been in a situation previously. I'm more confident now with the bailiff team, but the first bailiff has said, oh, it's okay just for today because you're only fishing for silvers. And, you know, they've obviously told all the big fish they're only fishing for silvers. So they definitely won't catch any bigger ones because they told the big fish they're not fishing for them. But the first bailiff has told them that they can do it for today, you know, fish for the rest of your session. The second bailiff, who adamantly believes that you should have a landing net to fish, is then put in a very awkward situation. So you've got to be consistent with your training with your bailiffs. And regardless of whether it's kids or not, there's got to be consistency. And then consistency breeds success. And then you will have less troublesome juniors. And hopefully you'll have some juniors that tell other juniors to stop misbehaving. We'll move it forward again. Andrew, if you want to come in.
Yeah, just a quick one for Merv. From a slow start, I've started to use the messenger thing to all the members. And I've been very pleasantly surprised about the feedback we're getting from it. Is there a level where you can overdo it or underdo it? How do you find? I mean, I don't want to bombard them with a message every every week, but do you think there's a balance, or do you find there's a balance how much you use it?
What you mean, messaging our members?
Yeah, basically using
They
the
wanted to
Clubmate.
call it like an all active members message, not specific, not
Yes,
specific
yeah.
members. But if you were going to message all of your members, how often do you do it, Merv, and how successful?
Yeah,
is
well, I mean, we had an incident tonight where the access road to our lakes is closed in both directions. Well, they're not closed, but they're re-tarmacking it. And our lakes manager was talking to the contractors today, and they said that it may be difficult actually passing because they're taking a larger tarmac machine in. So I've got him to send out a message. I don't send out that many messages. I try to minimize them. But one thing I would say to any of the clubs, if you're sending a message, try to keep it as short as possible, but make sure what you say to them, keep it in short paragraphs. Don't write a love letter, if you understand what I mean. You know what it's like yourself. If you take out a car insurance and it tells you to read all the rules and all this and that, and you got sheets and sheets of
No
paper,
one's ever read it ever.
that's the last thing you want to do, is to send a message out which is 3 or 4 sheets long. You need to keep it as short as possible.
So we got a few key phrases. Obviously, we've already done death by PowerPoint. That's what we call wall of text syndrome. So when you go on Facebook, and we've all seen this, and someone, whether it's a match report or a fishery report or a club post, I hate seeing it for clubs, because I'm just thinking you are not getting that message across. When you see that text, when the text is in a square, it's that much text that it can fill a square shape. No one reads it. As Merv said, absolutely spot on. Short message, short paragraphs. A paragraph should be no more than 2 or 3 lines, space, 2 or 3 lines, space, and then no more than maybe 3 or 4 of those. Have you all, Merv probably, I don't know if you use this, Merv, but do you use the reporting feature to tell you about the success of your emails?
I haven't personally used them, no.
So if I just show everyone that's on the call, and this is a really handy feature if you don't use it. So if you go to your reporting section, and I'm in Merv's now, if I go to member reports, there's one called bulk emails. So this is all the ones you've sent to more than one person, essentially. So whether it's all active members or all the adult members. Now, if I run a specific time period, I'll do year to date, because it will give us a little bit more data. It will take a second or two to load, because I've probably sent quite a few. There is every email that was sent to more than one person at the club. So if you're messaging all of your active members, this is where you'll find the data. So George's Lake closure, which is the latest one that went out, it will tell you how many people received it. It will tell you how many of them opened it, including as a percentage. And if we go a little bit deeper into that, and I click on view report and I go opened, I don't want to do this. I'm going to quickly flick on and off that, but that is a list of every individual member and what time they open the email. So if you're doing things now, that is fascinating data, but I'm going to encourage you all not to get fall down a rabbit hole, because then you'll start reading if every single one of those troublesome people in your head right now has read the email. But if you are sending out a particularly important message, and it's a rule change or a constitutional change or a price change, and we will all have experienced, I didn't get that. This will tell you if they've opened it, and it will tell you if they've read it, and it will tell you exactly what time they read it. And it's a very interesting tool. And just to come back to you, Andrew, again, if you want to, there is no hard and fast rule, because too much is subjective, and it's also based on how good the content is. It's based on what you're sending them. If you sent me loads of emails about free money, I'll open every one of them. But if it's really boring, I won't. If you want to get to the holy grail of success, it's 80% open rate. Now, if you're looking at an 80% open rate, and Merv's at Bideford here, the Bideford guy is 60, 70+%, 76 in some cases. Now, if you wanted to hit mega A+ standard, and it means your content is the best and it's written well and they really care about what you're doing, 80% is A star, shall we say. If you're in the high 60s and 70% brackets, it's pretty good. And obviously you can't tell from the first one, but if you start sending regular emails and you try maybe once a week, Andrew, track the open rates. And if they're poor and declining, you're probably either saying the wrong thing or sending too many. If you can start a trend of going upwards, and this is again one of the tools the system gives you, and I've kind of accidentally proven that we can do something useful for you here, but that helps you measure the success of your content, which is a really good way of looking into it. Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Good evening, everybody. My name's Graham Stacey. committee member of Clubmate Angling Club in Swindon. We're just about to implement Clubmate, and indeed Rob and Co are producing a new website for us. I'd be interested, Murph, to understand any pitfalls you had in importing your data, because we're at a crossroads really, because our data is all on paper and it's not comprehensive. My background is IT, and it's been for a number of years. What we don't want to do is take in poor data to start with. We're thinking at the moment of starting afresh from next season and starting our memberships and day tickets our renewal date. So I'll be interested in what you ported across, and that might help us understand whether it's worth us considering taking the data.
Yeah.
Can I answer this one?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that in the very beginning, when Phil will answer the question, but I just want to say what I was going to say was that we imported it, but Phil and Owen done it. And back in the early days when we joined, the out wasn't so good as what it is now since Rob Harris have joined Clubmate. It's made a big difference, and I'm not just
honestly, mate. No one believes I don't pay you for this stuff. Like everyone thinks I'm paying you for these reviews.
But if I would like Phil, our treasurer, to answer that, Graham, if he may.
That's great. Yeah, please.
Evening, Graham. Everyone again. So our database that we had wasn't compatible with the import setup with Clubmate at the time. So basically, I took everything and put it over onto a spreadsheet. Most of it was drag and drop or copy and pastes. Probably took me 3 or 4 hours to do, and then I sent it in, and it all got imported in.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Graham, just to kind of come in on the third wheel for that from Merv and Phil. Obviously, Babs is taking care of a lot of your kind of software build. Do you remind me if you have a joining fee?
No, we don't.
If you don't have a joining fee,
no,
don't upload data. You know, for me, the data upload is only valuable if you've got a joining fee, because it means obviously we need to put them in a cycle because they've already paid. You know, your current members if you've got a joining fee, they've already paid the joining fee.
Yeah.
If you don't have a joining fee, there isn't much true value to having an upload. You just send out that, go live with your register link and say, go buy your membership.
We thought by doing that. My thought was, if we did that, Rob, we want to spend the rest of this year working out how can we best use this fantastic tool that we've got, because listening to the other members, or Clubmate folk on the call. Each club uses it differently, and they'll use it differently for their needs. And we're trying to work out now: do we spend the time now? Let's familiar ourselves with Clubmate to a level that we're all competent on. Let's start warming up the membership now until the renewal time comes along. Then press the button, and your data will actually get populated with valid data. Because, as you said, Rob, nobody can register. And nobody can buy a permit unless they fill in all the details.
Yeah, they've got to fill in the fields when they buy.
Yeah.
I will honestly say this to every single new club that comes on board: only upload the data and to save yourself time, to save you wading through some more data. If you don't have a joining fee, don't bother. Just send it to the members and say it's your problem. You know, when they buy, they've got to fill in the exact fields, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Your time is better spent. And the biggest true value, and this is true not just of Clubmate, but in a lot of things in life, invest time in doing the best job for a start. You can see here, I've kind of navigated to Bideford's app as opposed to the desktop version. This is very much more than a default Clubmate app. It's got a lot more detail. Yeah. And as you've said, different clubs are using it for different reasons. Some of the best stuff Mervyn Bideford are taking out of this are nothing to do with selling membership.
No.
You've got rules in there and new bookings and content. And, you can spend a whole year and probably get better value out of it because you're then serving content to all of your members than selling membership. Yeah. When I do my demos these days, I tick off the membership and day ticket part and say, right, let's get this out of the way because you expect us to do that bit. It's the really obvious part of this, but the best part of the engagement in this is to start using it to have your content about your new venues or buy your rod license, information about Tarka Lake, the Tarka there, officers. clothing, your socials, all the other stuff is actually the icing on the cake. We can all sell membership. I can just go get 500 paper books and we can carry on doing like we've always done it. We'll do it badly, we'll do it slower, and we'll do it worse. But the best part is to spend that year, get the membership all set up and ready to go. You haven't got that headache. You don't really need to change right now because you've already sold it. It's gone. Get a good site and then run it well next year, rather than do not half a job now, but make it more complicated now and not really benefit from it.
No, you're on the same page with me, because even our committee members at the moment, I mean, I've been, as you know, or you and I have spoken, I've been in IT since I was 18. But a lot of our members and a lot of people on the committee they're slightly concerned about this new world of digital, and I can help them through that. And the only way, like you said, to help them through that is actually to build their confidence using Clubmate internally. They can set up a membership, they can pay, we can give them the money back.
Yeah, if we don't open it to the public,
it makes no difference. Then they can see how it's going to work when we press the button, and we'll spend the rest of the year warming up the membership. Say, next year it's going to change. Be aware, this is the way we're going to go. And
you will be closer to that kind of cold cut, cutting off the old process, as opposed to if you, much like Merv said, has happened with Bideford, instead of having to drag this out for another year or two, you're going to present them with a system you already know works well. You're going to say, tough guys, I know it works because we've spent all year breaking it. We've spent all year doing a membership and doing it badly, doing it well. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. But again, we'll catch up and have another chat on that.
Perfect.
Merv, I'll pull it back again. We're going to cut off soon. I know we've gone over an hour already, so I'll pull it back to Merv and the guys at Bideford. We've kind of talked about this, and some people have asked some really nice questions as well. What were the challenges? When you came on board, I'll ask you two different questions. What was difficult when you came on board with Clubmate? What were the kind of reservations? Now, I know that Darth Chairman over there apparently has his reservations, apparently, but what were the reservations? Because obviously we always go to a vote. Whenever people talk about joining Clubmate, we wait for a committee vote on whether you join or not, and hopefully we're successful. What was the kind of reservations about not joining Clubmate? What were the challenges you actually had? Because I'm not going to hide any challenges from anyone on this call. What did you find difficult when you first came on Clubmate? And what do you now do with the Clubmate tools that you couldn't possibly have done or would have been much more difficult before? And that's open to any of the Bideford guys as well as Merv.
Yeah. The reservations I had, is probably Phil will agree with that, was that at the beginning, we contacted Clubmate, Phil contacted Owen, and Owen gave him a tutorial online. And be perfectly honest, that was it. And Phil started, and then he got me involved, and I thought, I like this tool and I'm going to develop it. So I developed the app, and I overloaded it with too much information. And that was in the early days. And once again, you came on board, which to me made a big difference as far as Clubmate is concerned.
I have to turn my camera off in a minute, Merv, for Christ's sake.
No, it's no bullshit, but you did make a big difference. And you've done the webinars and things like that. And also, you've made us, well, not made us, we've got the community app now. And I would advise anybody that's on this online call tonight that if you're using Clubmate and you haven't joined the Clubmate community, you need to do it, because you can ask questions on there and everybody's got different views. And there was a couple of things that I learned from that. But saying that, Clubmate has become my baby, be quite honest, and Phil will probably agree with that, and Pete as well. They've left me to it. I do more than the secretary's job. I really club secretary, probably membership secretary, and I've taken a lot of load off of Phil. Going forward, I would say we've taken on one additional water, and Clubmate has made a big difference to that, because we can control what is happening on that water, and we were looking to take on a few more. Be perfectly honest, I haven't got any negative comments I can actually make at the moment, unless somebody wants to ask me something that I can't answer.
Phil, we'll let Phil come in with the other kind of viewpoint from Bideford. But if anyone can think of any questions in the meantime, raise your hand and we'll have a chat afterwards.
Okay, yeah, it did take us quite a while actually to get it through the committee because we had other challenges within the club at the time. There was a reservation across the committee with whether everybody would have access via sort of smartphone, tablet, computer, whatever, and the level of membership, you know, with the age demographic, we've got quite a lot of people who are retired, etc., whether they'd be able to use it. Again, there was reservations about the payment because quite common people think that you have to have online banking to pay with your credit card or your debit card, which is obviously what we use for the system payment. But in the main, once we got through and basically got everything set up and we got through, started reducing our membership, the amount of memberships we had sort of thing as in plans, got that trimmed down. Everything really in the last sort of 12 months or so has gone properly smooth. Yeah, at the very beginning, the training was all sort of online. You had to click on and basically go through, do the reading and all the rest and teach yourself. I did make quite a few phone calls at the beginning, which is now, I think, not so necessary really with the webinars that Rob does. He takes you through, you know, the specific subjects fairly well, you know, pretty good.
So thank you very much. Again, if anyone's got any questions, raise your hand and we'll go to them. The one thing I'll say is obviously, I mean, I'm very happy to get the praise from these guys personally. It's very, very nice to hear. And obviously Clubmate's come on a long way. We have very much grown as a business. Obviously, when Phil, who's left the call, joined, it was basically just Owen, who was the founder of Clubmate. He's now the commercial director of the business, and I'm the kind of operational head of Clubmate. It was pretty much Owen, and he did all of the sales, all of the software, all of the onboarding, all of the ID card, you know, absolutely everything. And then when I joined the business, there was only 3 of them. It's more than double that now, but that's because of you guys. You guys are paying for that. You know, it's the business that's paying for those new team members. But a lot more of it, and certainly one of my passions throughout that, coming from being a club chairman myself, and you know, we were the Angling Club of the Year last year, is that you need to know what anglers want. You need to know what clubs want and what they do. And the most important part of this business for me was that engagement with clubs and knowing what they do and how they operate. So we've hired, you know, since I've joined, we've hired more people that run clubs, not that do software. It's very important that the staff aren't software people. They don't come from a software background. They come from an I run a club background, whether that's a chairman or a membership secretary or a fishery manager, or, you know, every single member of staff at Clubmate, their core role is that they run their own club. And we give them time during their working week to run their own club, because the more of it they do, the better they will be for you guys. You know, the more they know about running clubs, the better this gets. And it was all about, as the kind of guys have fed back, and it's not all about me, but you know, it was all for me about talking to them like their clubs run. You know, we know how clubs run them and how they probably should run. So I really do appreciate that. It's nice to hear. But again, the challenges, and I think the benefit of the call, it's not, no one's surprised anyone with what you've said. It will be the same reservation and challenges that nearly everyone on this call's had, and that I've had today speaking to clients that are about to come on board with us. There are reservations from the people that don't understand technology and are afraid of online banking. But as we saw, you mentioned earlier with Merv saying there were 1 or 2 people this year that couldn't do it. That is actually the true level out of 500 odd members. And that is reflective of the percentage, because Merv with 500 odd members has 1 or 2 that can't manage it. I'm in the, you know, my club's in the 1,000+ category, and it's about 5. You know, I have 5 properly old boys that ring me every year, and they're in, one of them's over 100, but they're in their 90s, who call me on the phone, and I do it over the phone for them. Now, I would rather do that than bike round every tackle shop in Peterborough. You know, I'd rather, sell bits of paper and carry $3,000 in cash on June the 16th. If I have to speak to 5 people on the phone, I'm actually glad to hear from them, because some of these are the old, you know, faces of angling on the Neen, you know, the Neen and the Wellet. I love hearing their stories every year, and it is the same story every year. You know, it's the same story about how they fished with Ivan Marks. But I love hearing it every year. And when I hear from those 5, I will be so happy, because one year I won't. So it is actually not a bad opportunity to speak to those 5. we'll cut it out in a minute. I'm going to ask for Merv or Phil or Pete to kind of sum up, really. Just give us the kind of lasting, the closing statement on Bideford and Clubmate. Tell us, I want you to tell me, because I don't want this to all end about us. What are Bideford going to do soon? What are the exciting things on your horizon? I know obviously you've got the new venues, but tell me what are the exciting things on the horizon for Bideford, and just a closing statement on Clubmate, really.
Well, I'll kick off if you like. The exciting things that's going to happen, hopefully, that we're going to take on more additional waters. And be perfectly honest, Clubmate will help us do that, because we'll be able to manage our memberships, booking on, etc., etc. I think we've done the right thing. And as far as I'm concerned as a secretary, is like I said, Clubmate is a complete heaven towards me. And what I will say, which I haven't mentioned tonight, if you do join Clubmate for any clubs, when we joined in the first instance, our payment system was through Stripe, and then we moved to the Clubmate Pay, and that's made a big difference also, because you can log into Clubmate and you got it all on one screen, and you just go to your accounting, etc., and you've got all your payments, your refunds, and whatever there, all on one page. And before that, you had to sign into Stripe, which could be a pain in the butt at times. And that's all I've got to say, really. And I just like to thank Rob for inviting me to come along tonight, just to say a few things about Clubmate.
I mean, you guys are very welcome. When we decided to do the conversations with and start speaking to some clients, you're right at the front of the list, because you're using it really well. You engage with things that are challenges and just ask nicely, and it's going very well. It was literally the first club on the list that I thought, it's not just you, Merv, but Phil, and everyone that we get involved with. There is not one negative conversation with Bideford. And removing Clubmate from the equation, I look at all of the social media now. I watch how clubs run and what they're doing. It's just a good club. So it's our pleasure for you to be the guest on this call. It's our pleasure for that one. Just to kind of bookend what Merv said, as far as Clubmate Pay is concerned, and Merv and the current clients might not be aware of this, but new clients have no choice. So when clients join now, there is no Stripe. They have to go on Clubmate Pay. But for any of the current clients that haven't yet migrated from Stripe to Clubmate Pay, I'm not going to do a sales pitch to close this call, but it's incredibly reliable, much more convenient, and it's cheaper. So if you haven't yet had a conversation about it, just get in touch and we'll have a chat about Clubmate Pay as the alternative to Stripe. Anyone else want to close with anything? Any more questions, or the guys from Bideford?
I'll just say one other thing. If you're going to develop the apps like Rob's got up on our page, try to keep everything as simple as possible and short as possible. If you can scroll down to the beginning, Rob, with all the coloured writing is on the top, can you do that? Or
Yeah,
can I do that?
I can do that in 2 seconds. There you go.
Right. You may say, why have you got different coloured paragraphs? I had a couple of members message me and said, I don't take a lot of notice of things that get sent to me, emails or messages, but looking at your Clubmate front page, I've noticed you got it in different colors, and that's made me read everything you got written. So that is a tip that I picked up myself. And
now, I'll take a little step further back here, Merv. A lot of people don't even realize you can put text up there.
That's right.
Let alone the different colors. So if I go to Merv's member area again, if I go back to the Bideford member area, on desktop, you can't edit this on your phone. This is a desktop only thing. There is an edit button here, and you can drop in the images and the text in here. And this is, think of this as a kind of notice board. This is obviously the member area. So everyone must see this to do anything in the app. So if you've got any very important messages, edit the top of your member area, save the message, and this will be seen by every angler that joins the platform or goes in to buy their membership. And again, just to kind of add to what Merv has said, obviously we've done quite a lot of custom on here. It's different than the tiles at a standard club. I've done custom tiles and images and color scheme for Merv. Keep it simple. This is the kind of maximum amount of tiles I would add. There is a tendency, and Merv, we actually removed some of yours from your original kind of setup, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And once you get to about 30 tiles, again, much like the rules list, no one reads them. But if you can keep it to maybe a dozen, and like I say, we're probably about at the limit of what I'd like to have here. That's a perfect phone screen full of data. They've got a button they can nearly without scrolling see everything. Perfect presentation and looks quite good. Mark?
Yeah, just a quick question of understanding there. Am I right in thinking Bideford, this is their only website? They don't have a separate website standalone. It's just through Clubmate.
No,
they have a
our own
website as well. So just to clarify, Clubmate is not a front-facing platform. So you do need to have a front end to have Clubmate. Clubmate is a back-end tool, so it needs to be registered to via a link. So not necessarily a website. And a whole other topic I've covered on previous seminars as well. Websites, in terms of their usage, are going down a lot. You know, not many people actively use websites anymore, but most people still expect a professional business of any kind, whether it's a club or a business, to have a website, whether or not it's used well. But I wouldn't invest heavily in websites these days. I would have a simple shop window, you know, a front page, very cheap shop window. But we have a lot of clients that operate Clubmate purely through a social media page, you know, a free Facebook business page, or, you know, there's just because of course you can change the buttons on a social media page. You can have a buy now or join here or, you know, whatever button, because Clubmate is purely accessible by either a QR code scan or a link. So you put a link behind a button or whatever else. And just to kind of, again, Merv's very good at this one. If you go onto Bideford's Facebook page, it will say exciting news, go looking Clubmate. And there are really good reasons for this. And whether or not Merv and Bideford do this intentionally, those same people that say, I don't do technology and I can't pay online and whatever else, if you start making that member area the only place you can find information, like a newsletter or the match results or whatever else, and they've got to navigate to it through a Facebook post or whatever, your members are going to subliminally be better at the app, because they weren't buying their membership or making a booking, but they were navigating around the Clubmate app to find the news or the match results or whatever else. And then by the time they get to their membership in January, it's not such a panic because it was the one thing they did this year. The worst experiences of Clubmate are the clubs, and it's led by the clubs, because you can see that Bideford are doing quite a good job with this. The clubs that only use it to sell membership. So the only time anyone ever uses it is once a year. You know, 1st of January this year, 1st of January next year. Now, any of you people on the call, if you only did something once a year, you wouldn't be very good at it. So if you then do it well, and like we said earlier, kind of put the membership aside and say, well, of course it does that bit, let's do the rest. If you, like Bideford, put on your social media, we've got some exciting news, please go to your Clubmate member area. And the news was, we've got this new venue. I do watch you guys. You see, I do know what's going on. Your members all have to go there to find that exciting news. They've messed around in the app a little bit more. They've got used to how it works and how it navigates. And when it comes to membership time, you're not going to have that wave of people that forgot what it was last year and forgot how to put their card in, because they've just been using it to get news and content. And it's just like Netflix at that point. You know, it's just like Amazon. So that is a really good tip for using that. But hopefully that answers your question, Mark. Yeah, fair enough. Thank you very much. Anything else, guys?
Can I just add on, Rob, when you said about exciting things, we've obviously, myself and another lad, we've got our level 2 to complete, but we are intending to do more junior activities within the club, not just on course fishing, but on sea fishing as well, with various things, with those challenges coming up, and hopefully we'll get more people on board to help.
Yeah, like I say, I'm passionately, personally in love with the junior participation piece. I do a lot with Canal River Trust, a lot with Angling Trust, a lot of my own time and my own hours. I love hearing about coaching and new lead event coaches and how well the events go. And again, if you go to Bideford's social media, you'll see the junior events. It's fantastic to see. Look out for a lot more. I think in 2 weeks' time, the next webinar is actually Ulvis, the new chap at Clubmate, talking about practical coaching. Last 2 weeks ago, we did kind of the participation, high level kind of participation piece, which was kind of the politics and junior participation and how it's going. In 2 weeks' time, there is a specific webinar led by Ulvis, and I'll be helping him with it on how you practically get coaching kids. You know, how you actually do it. He is a lead event coach, and he's just about to get signed off for his level 3. So he will be a coach educator. So he'll be training coaches. So that will be a really interesting one. Really excited, you guys. We want to share good news stories. You'll notice on our social media that we share stories from clubs, and we kind of highlight good things at clubs. But if any of the people on the call, and we'll pass this out to everyone else as well, if you've got something you think we will like, send it to us and we will share it on our socials and put it out in our newsletters. So if anyone else has got any other questions, we'll kind of cut it off from there. There is going to be a story every month. So there's going to be a conversation with a new club every month. The next one is planned to be Reading, who are the current Angling Times Club of the Year. And you might have noticed they stole my crown because it was me last year. So we're fighting over this year's. But Reading, again, I visited them a few weeks ago. Fantastic club and very justifiably the Club of the Year. So we're hoping to have Del Shackelford from Reading for a completely other end of the scale view. When obviously Merv, and not to disparage at all, said he was a smaller club, Reading are a massive club. And their revenue is astronomical. And it's really interesting to see because they've then moved on to projects like the Kennet Hatchery project and things like that. It's interesting to see how, again, they use our tools. And the one thing they're really positive about, which I think Bideford don't do as much of, is they use it very actively for exchange permits with local clubs. So if anyone's interested in kind of exchanging permits with local clubs and booking people onto kind of shared water access, that will be a really interesting one. So thank you very much for the guys from Bideford, especially tonight, who've come to talk about their club and the Clubmate experience. Thank you to everyone else that's joined, and just keep an eye on your inbox for the next invitations to the next webinars. So thank you very much, everyone.